Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Breakfast Dish.
Mais non, je pense que it is the 14th episode.
I don't think it is.
Oui, because I think on last episode I corrected you on Savannah's that it was not 12, it was 13, and this would be
No,
30.
I think you corrected me 11th to 12th.
Did I?
I'm. You know what? I'm gonna go to the Buzzsprout right now.
Je
and I'm
suis
gonna check.
stupid.
I'm almost sure.
J'assume it was quatre.
J'accuse.
Nope, not quatre. 14. J'assumed it was 14 episode.
Yes, no, Savannah was 12, so this is 13. It is technically our 14th episode because of our episode 0.
Je suis correctement. Did you know that your mother was bilang?
No, I didn't, and I don't think anybody else does.
Or bipolar.
Bipolar.
An early dig from our guest that we haven't even introduced yet.
People will know who this is. If they're listening to this episode, they're listening to it for
That's
the
true.
guest. As I hope all of our episodes are. Karen, what do we do on the breakfast dish?
Well, son, on the breakfast dish, we speak to artists and creators and masters of art that are putting art online or offering in-person physically distanced art. In these times of stay away from each other, what are your entertainment options offered by Alberta? That's what we do.
As you were listing off your descriptors, and by the way, Masters of Art is a huge claim. Our guest was checking out his neckline, beard line, and we were pumping up his ego.
When we realize why our guest is on the show today, we will understand why I was clever when I said Masters of Art.
We summon the masters.
Before we go to our guest, I have to let you know something, Griffin. I've been doing a lot of learning and growing this week since our last episode.
Wow, okay. Whoa, all right. You want to do this on the podcast?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
On the Friendly Giant, it wasn't the rocking chair that the two people curled up in. It was just a big chair. The rocking chair was just for one person that liked to rock. And also, in going back and watching The Friendly Giant, the rooster and the giraffe puppets, for the first time in my 54 years, I realized they're probably voiced by the same puppeteer. Like, I never realized that before.
That was really brave of you to do, Karen, and I really appreciate that. And I have something. I've been doing a lot of listening and learning as these past couple days have gone on, and I have something to say.
Okay.
I've never seen The Elephant Man. I've only ever quoted it. I've never seen it.
You have terrible parents. No, you know what? That's a movie a father would show his son. You have a terrible father.
Oh, no. Do a nicer intro than that.
Once upon a time, 27 years ago, I married the most wonderful man. Wait a second. Once upon a time, 26 years ago,
In a land
I
before
married the
time.
most wonderful man. And 2 years later, the stork brought us you, Griffin Cork.
Are you introing me or him?
I'm saying brought us. I'm still on him. So, 24 years ago, the stork brought myself and the guest you. And 24 years later, the two of you are completely obsessed with the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Dungeon Master Kevin Cork.
You guys cut all that part out, right? Like all that stuff you guys just did. You don't keep
We do know. We do usually leave that in.
for it's like people in the public to hear.
Yeah. We do let them hear it. It's
Okay.
unfortunately. It's we have a quota. We have a quota of minutes to make.
Oh, I see. Excellent.
And we figure you're only good for 37 of them, so we got to fill in the rest.
Yeah, if we're under 20 minutes, I'm just going to ask Dad to list off all the Dungeons and Dragons classes really slowly.
I bet he could, though.
Oh, okay, well, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Now, I feel as though every time we have a family member on, and this actually might be the last time we have a family member on, unless another family member we have starts making online or digital or socially distanced art, we have to justify it. And so this time, Kevin Cork, we've brought you on to talk about the D20 Initiative.
All right.
Do you know that, or is that a surprise?
No, I assumed it wasn't for the art of financial planning.
No. Although, now, Karen, now that we've introduced him, do you want to explain why your master's joke was funny? The public loves to hear stuff like that.
I did already. I said, ladies and gentlemen, Dungeon Master Kevin Cork. Because, okay, just a second. Let's go back again. 26 years ago, when Kevin and I were first married, he said, hey, I like to play Dungeons & Dragons when I was in university. Want to play with me? And I was like, sure. And then my character wanted to sing to trees, and he never asked me again. So then, 24 years later, when you took up Dungeons & Dragons, you guys really clicked on it, and I've really been trying. I tried about 5 times, and then I gave up. But he has been Dungeon Master for most of the games of the 6 that I've been involved in.
Well, I also learned recently today that you've always wanted to play a treant. I mean, if we could set that up, that might change your whole mood on things.
Well, if I can't sing to the trees, I want to be a tree that sings. Anyway, Kevin Cork, tell us about your introduction to Dungeons & Dragons in high school/university.
My introduction was through Grant Lindenberg, who at the time was working in a game store and was a hardcore gamer.
What edition did you play?
What edition?
Yeah.
It was Advanced D&D, so I think that's 2nd edition.
Damn.
Wow, that's old.
Well, for the listeners who don't know, the edition we're on right now in today's day and age is 5th edition. And how did it? I've only heard tell of all of the other editions of D&D. I've never played any other edition. Mechanically, like numbers-wise, this gets into the kind of the lore of the things, but the 5th edition of D&D is very user-friendly. How do the other editions go?
Well, I don't know any other editions between 2nd edition and then 5th edition, because after my new wife sang to the trees, I was so traumatized I didn't play for like 20 years.
It's true.
My friends never came over again.
It's true. Can I back up for a second? Can we just recognize that, in fact, D20 Initiative is, in fact, online or social distant art and performance that is being offered, and we're not just talking to your father about his games in the basement.
Yeah, no, I figured games in the basement. No, I did figure that we were going to get to that, but I was liking the build up of the lore.
I'm just thinking about the other non-D&D fans. Anyway, you guys talk D&D, and I will interpret for those people.
So you started with Grant.
Yes.
And this is something that I want to talk to you about publicly live on our podcast. I know for a fact that you and Grant and your friend group had a Dungeons & Dragons guild called the Mages of the Order of the Silver Ribbon.
Oh, the Mages of the Order of the Silver Ribbon was a creation I did a couple of years after that. I didn't have it with Grant and those crew.
Oh, I thought it was with like Grant and Kevin McKendrick and all them.
Although, interestingly, or hopefully interestingly, is because my initial exposure to D&D was through a bunch of artist-actor types, I've always equated it as more of a performance art game than just a sort of tactical board game.
Well, I've noticed on the front of the player's manual now for 5th edition, the words role-playing game are like bolded and also colored differently. Like it does seem a factor of the game that people seem to hide away from sometimes.
The role-playing aspect?
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree. Although there's, what I've discovered in playing the various games is that there is many ways you can play the game, and different people like to focus on different aspects of the game, and the game is flexible enough, assuming the DM is flexible enough to accommodate different styles of play.
DM stands for Dungeon Master. You're welcome, listeners.
We do appreciate it.
A dungeon master, as mentioned by my friend Thomas in episode 1 of Bridging the Gap Between Generations Who Assume Things About Each Other, nice segue, said that the dungeon master is like the god of the game.
I really like this whispering to yourself a compliment about the thing you just did. Hey, awesome insight. Okay, moving on.
Is that for your your internal monologue? Is when you talk quietly and duck down there?
The
Okay.
super objective is that I did a great podcast. And good job, Karen. I'm the best. Moving on.
And Kevin has to listen to me talk now. Speaking of performance elements, though, I will say that I have viewed the D20 Initiative live and online. And because a majority of the performers do come from the arts world or have at one point inhabited the world of performance, that's what makes it, I think, the best D&D game to watch, because it's not just a bunch of people saying, okay, my character walks over and picks up that rock and throws it. It's instead somebody going, I'm gonna throw this rock at your face.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. We'll just breeze past that. Kevin, why don't you talk about how the D20 Initiative was formed?
The original idea of the D20 was actually prior to my joining it, but it was all about creating a hybrid audience participation type of D&D game that's combined elements of improvisation, which of course is built into Dungeons & Dragons, the role-playing, as well as just the pure sort of nerd love of the mechanics of the game. So there's certainly a lot of improv elements, certainly the whole soap opera continuing ongoing story aspect, coupled with watching the interaction. And effectively what it turns D&D into is really just the mechanical structure for telling a story.
Right. And that's kind of how I got into D&D originally, is I started playing with some of my BFA classmates when I was up in Edmonton. And it really is just it's a setting and like character ideas and like a set almost Mad Lib style structure to do some creative storytelling. And it eventually just turns into doing bits with your friends. Again, talking about how flexible your DM is.
Right. Because the DM ideally is not writing the story. He or she is creating the setting, and then the DM and the players together write the story.
Right, which is actually a common misconception, and I can see Karen getting bored as we get into the Dungeons and Dragons. That the DM is not against the party; they're supposed to be a fully neutral party. Although Kevin might disagree with that.
No. The idea is to create a situation that allows the characters to interact, and the opposition solely comes from the idea of challenging the players to give them a sense of stakes. But again, that's not the point of the DM isn't to destroy the party. Usually, the point.
Yeah, but sometimes he does. I'm in one of my dad's games where he's the DM, and he's ruthless. I'll say it.
It's not ruthless. It's just the hard fact of life.
Tough love, honey.
Yeah.
Tough love.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense when the tyrant says it's not ruthless.
Oh, I see. So this is really what we're talking. This is what we're going to be talking about here. This is what it is.
That's right. The podcast has been a long con. It's only for this moment.
Can I ask a question, or do I need to roll a dice to see if I have enough charisma to ask the question?
Nice. Way to go,
Yeah,
Karen.
that was a pretty good nerd cred.
Okay, I rolled a 20. So my question is...
Come on. You were making good references. Don't glaze over them. You're doing
I
great.
know. Rolled a 20 is also a reference, isn't? I know enough to know that 20 is a good roll.
That's true.
Yeah,
Nat
you have
20.
to say nat 20.
Audience, nat 20 means a natural 20. It doesn't mean that you roll a 17 and then all your special little bonus prizes that are associated with your characters bump you to 20. It means you rolled a dice that has 20 sides and you landed on the 20th. Here's my question, my charismatic question. Where did you learn about improv and long-form storytelling and soap opera style, Griffin and Kevin?
I think I read about it in a book.
Oh,
Yeah, I think on my 4th birthday, Dad gave me that book.
Yeah.
great.
So then it was
that's
passed
great.
on through that lineage. No, it's true though. If I didn't know about if I hadn't done so much improv because of you, Karen Johnson Diamond.
Thank you.
I bet you I would feel less comfortable hopping into, say, like a Dungeons & Dragons game that I wasn't a part of originally, like just joining a friend's game.
So what a great thing for improvisers to get involved with is Dungeons and Dragons. And also, just a little side note here, because he rolled a nat 20. That means I can bump him up for a little bit. Griffin is an excellent teacher when it comes to D&D. So if you're an actor that's ever wanted to play D&D.
Mother used to, when I was in elementary school, print me off whenever we'd bring all my friends over. We'd kind of like give her some of the source material, and then she'd go upstairs and write us like a 25 question quiz and then print off copies for all of us to do. So we did kind of the same thing. I printed off a D&D character sheet for her, and then I ran her through some scenarios of her fighting a goblin. And so let me see if it's still there, Karen.
No, don't tell me.
What is your AC?
I can't.
No, what's your AC?
AC, air conditioning. Ask me another one.
Great. If I asked you to roll a persuasion check with disadvantage, do you know what to do there?
Yeah, I'd have to roll the dice without using my hands. Keep going. Ask me more.
I don't want to if the answers are going to be like this.
What?
You look like you're in pain on our Zoom call.
I am in pain because I forget everything. No, just a second. Ask Kevin those questions. He's our guest, for Pete's sake. He's our guest.
No, but
He's
Kevin,
our
I know.
guest. Put his knowledge
Kevin's
to
known
the
them
test.
for 20 years. Listen, Kevin, how do you make...
Do you guys ignore your other guests for this long a period? Again, just talk amongst yourselves. Isn't this like an interview
You
format?
only hurt the ones you love, honey.
I see.
Yeah, honestly, our other guests don't charge us a $400 appearance fee, so we're gonna have to talk about that at the end. Kevin, how do you make a D&D game interactive?
Well, again, this is a format that they had started with already. The group that was involved in getting D20 started.
When you keep saying they, Kevin, like the group had already, who is they?
I don't know.
Are they human or are they half orcs?
They are human.
Neutral human or evil? Evil's not a word. Neutral or...
Evil, you're right. There is evil in alignment.
Is there? Okay.
Some of them were even lawful good, Karen.
So the lawful goods were like, I don't know, say Emma Brager?
Yes, I would say that.
And is a lawful good, say, Jason Memel?
Yeah,
I don't know,
sure.
Karen, are you asking us to classify all of the D20 Initiative members by alignment?
Let's not do that.
I'm putting a question mark behind their name because I want to make sure I'm getting everybody that's involved in D20, which should not be my job. We have a guest who can tell us this.
I'm afraid I don't know who the original group was. However, the restart of D20 happened, well, effectively a year and a half ago. That was when we sort of went full bore at Dicken's and started the process.
Yeah, so we should give some background on that. It used to be a live show at Dicken's Pub where people could come and like roll the dice and see it in person, and now it's moved to an online format.
Yes.
And also, can I just dive in here and say, ironically or coincidentally, Dicken's used to be a pub of a different name in which we started our long-form improv soap opera in that same bar. So it's come full circle.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Circle of life.
Yeah.
That is true.
What was the pub named?
Jesters?
No, I can't remember right now. At this particular moment, I can't remember. It was Dickens, and then it was bought out, and we were in it for 3 years when it was the whatever it was. And then when it came back, it was renamed Dickens. But I'll think of what that is.
And also, the bar itself was reconfigured because actually I did perform improv there for 3 years with my wife, Karen Johnson Diamond.
And Calgary's only live improvised soap opera, Dirty Laundry.
Thanks, guys. That's all I needed.
Great. Well, Karen will be talking for the rest of the podcast, it sounds like.
Okay. Well, it's been great, guys.
Yeah,
then.
so you'll send me
Thanks.
the e-transfer of the performance fee, and we'll see how that goes.
That's right.
So how has it become? So now D20 Initiative streams on Twitch and YouTube. Am I right about that?
You are right about that.
And how is it interactive online?
Well, obviously, like everybody else, or like lots of people, we had to figure out a way to continue to do the show. The format has changed a little bit. This particular season, we're starting our second season. It's co-DM, myself and Jen. And before we did single stories every night that we performed, this time it's an ongoing story. So the improv equivalent to doing single stories would be what?
Short form?
Short form improv?
Yeah.
So we've changed from being short form improvisational gaming performance to long-form improvisational gaming performance.
Karen, are you on your phone?
I'm trying to look up what Dickens used to be called.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you weren't just totally zoned out. And how? What interactive elements have you kept?
The interactive elements were to allow the audience to participate in some of the random chants. So one of the big things of Dungeons & Dragons is you roll various shaped dice, a little bit of introductory trivia. The first the first version of Dungeons & Dragons just used 6-sided dice for everything, because that was the only dice that existed.
Yeah, there's a lot of role-playing games that only use 6-sided dice.
Right. And in the end, the idea of the various percentages and various types of dice are a little bit, it's sort of an academic discussion.
Here's what you need to know about dice. There's 19 of them. You only really use 4 of them.
Brash statements by Karen Johnson Diamond.
I'm sorry, Kevin Cork. I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Just try that out again. Just be funnier.
Episode 15 will be a purely D&D redactions.
So the interactive element is getting some of the viewers to roll dice, although we don't actually have the ability yet to have them roll dice. That's one of the things that we've been talking about and exploring, getting sort of online dice rolling so that we can recreate the live audience experience. And when they are rolling these dice, it is to have certain effects or certain benefits or disadvantages happening to the characters, and then part of the fun is having the characters have to deal with those benefits or disadvantages.
Right. So right now, the way the show format works is the audience can activate these magical effects for these characters at any moment during the show.
I can't wait to tell everybody how they're activated. I'm not lying when I say this. You activate these special things that happen to these characters by squeezing a rubber chicken. No lie.
Right. Although that's less effective now that we're online because not a lot of people have a rubber chicken handy.
What?
And B, we can't hear it.
But there's still a squeak sound. Who's making the squeak sound? Emma Brager's running sound, and she's just... Is there no real chicken behind Emma Brager's mic?
There's no real chicken anywhere. Because a rubber chicken isn't a real chicken.
They've all been rubber.
There's obviously some things we have to go over before we do our next session.
With Karen, with an audience member.
Yes, maybe that's a disclaimer we should put at the beginning.
No chickens were harmed. Yeah.
By the way, there's no real chickens, just in case that's a thing. So we're not appropriating any poultry culture in any way.
Poultry. Oh my God.
Right now, yes, people are just typing the word squeak, and that's an homage to the original where we passed out mini fake rubber chickens, as opposed to like the real rubber chickens, like the full-size ones.
Right. They were, in fact, kind of off-brand rubber chickens.
They were generic rubber chickens, and also they were small.
That's sizest.
It is sizest, and it's rubberist, really.
An homage to the omelette. Now, moving on. Kevin, why don't you give us an idea of like what the actual story is for the second season of the D20 Initiative?
Well, because we're doing a show twice a month, and that's a lot of writing and a lot of creating, because being the DM does require a lot of prep work. There are 2 of us sharing the job, and each developing and sharing and interacting and adjusting and editing each other as we move forward into creating a unique version of some of the published worlds and creating a story that will build over basically an arc of a season, wrap things up in June and July.
The other DM is Jen Gerritsen. Am I right about that?
You are right about that.
Carry on, Kevin.
And the story is going to be evolving. We don't have a set story. We have a rough plot, a rough strategy. For both of us, we don't want to have a preset story. We want to let a lot of the consequences and a lot of the actual chapters of the story be written with the players' help as we go through the game. So effectively, we have arcs and mini arcs and ideas around that, but it is wholly dependent on what the players do or don't do, what they say, how things end up. So the story is being written on the fly based on the improvisation of the players.
Which, the audience doesn't get why writing your own chapters is funny. What is the setting of season 2?
It is set in 2 libraries on 2 different worlds, 2 grand libraries. One in the world of Eberron and one in the world of Forgotten Realms, which are both published D&D campaign worlds. And by that I mean the owners of the D&D game, the publishers, Wizards of the Coast, have created or used these sort of quasi-set worlds that have history and religion and social customs and things that you can use. Now we've adapted those to suit what we want to do. We have specific focuses of things we want to explore, but we decided to use the published worlds to give people a recognized place for us to sort of springboard from.
Right, the quote-unquote nerd love.
The nerd love is important. It also, the way all the D&D worlds are set up is they're all set up to be expandable and customizable for individual games. So we are creating our campaign information, which doesn't necessarily mean that it applies to all Forgotten Realms worlds played in every game. Am I explaining that well?
Yeah, no, I think so.
I'm asking the non-D&D person.
I think what you're saying is that once upon a time, the guys who liked D&D the most that invented it wrote a book and said, hey, you know what you could do? You could do a story about 3 dwarves and a tree ant in a magical forest, and they encounter an octopus who's a monster. And then you sort of use that storyline as a base, but you can change that story to, rather than being in a forest, be in a library, and that the octopus monster is truly just a gigantic orc that eats books about octopus.
Less than that. So they've said we're going to create a world that this forest is called this and this town is called this, and in this town everybody wears purple. Then you write the story based on that world.
Wow, you're doing way more than I thought you were.
That happens every single day.
I make fun of him, but honestly, this is, as an improviser, you can go on stage with someone, a young improviser or a new improviser, and you say, hi, welcome to Walmart. What can I help you find? And they might go, I broke my leg. And as a seasoned improviser, you need to go, okay, come with me to the first aid section of Walmart. So with Kevin's DMing, he could set up this brilliant world in this library with these monsters, and he could be leading us as players towards this encounter. But Karen, the newbie, just gets fascinated with the fact that he said there's a stack of books over there, and my character just wants to read the books. But he has to go on with that, and watching him live, he does that every single time. He can make my reading of the book become part of that adventure. He'll all of a sudden come up with the fact that if I'm reading a book, I learn something that the rest of the group needs to know in order for moving on towards our monster that we're supposed to be encountering. So I am fascinated and awestruck by Kevin's ability to write on the fly, to improvise.
The interesting thing about that, of course, all what you just said was very interesting. But another interesting thing about that is, since I played D&D as a young man, I have done those years of improv, and the two of them work together to create what we're doing now, which is truly a hybrid between a performance of a show and the gameplay. So to use your analogy for the improv, if the director sets up a scene where 2 people meet in a park and the first thing the person says is, let's leave this park and I want to go ride on the subway, they've completely rejected what the director has set up. So that's not saying yes to the situation. That's not considering other people. So
right.
The cooperative performance element comes from both the DM and the player working effectively in the same direction, as opposed to both having their own ideas and trying to force the thing to go one direction or another.
Right. Even as a performer, sometimes there's like moments of like meta nerd humor that you can like ignore a glowing book, or like there's a old sage on the side of the road who obviously has a quest to give you and you can like walk by. But yeah, I think the nice meshing comes from the fact that everybody in the show wants to tell a good story. Which is how I think you get a successful D&D game in the beginning anyways, is if everyone there is pumped to tell a good story and not just have like the coolest character.
I've been doing a lot of learning and growing over the last 3 minutes of this conversation. No, seriously, it isn't till right now this actual moment that I realize how annoying it was 26 years ago when I tried to play D&D and I just wanted to sing to monsters and trees because there was 4 other people in the room playing and they were trying to go on a quest and I was just trying to be funny. No, I'm just getting it.
This is a big revelation given what I know about your two relationship.
Doesn't mean I'm going to continue playing in any way, shape, or form, but...
No. Oh, but wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know now knowing that everyone's just trying to tell a cool collective story? That's like that's your job.
Watching you guys play. I really do. Like because it is. It's like people who watch improv and go, oh my God, how do you do that? I have that same feeling, only it's how do you remember all of the classes and the races and the different dice and what they're for and the advantages and the disadvantages. That's, I think, why it hasn't landed so well in my brain is that it's acting plus math, and I don't like the math part.
It's not math, it's just memorization. Learning what your character can do is way less complex than memorizing the next level Scrabble you play with your mother where you put down an A and go, 47 points.
We're really getting into the marriage here.
47 points.
In 26 years of marriage, I have played D&D with Kevin about as many times as he's played Scrabble with me. So somebody out there invent a hybrid between D&D and Scrabble, and Kevin and I will be happily ever after married.
Scrabble and Dragons.
Right. But also, if you're learning Scrabble, don't learn it from Karen and her family, because the in-laws are heartless and swearing at each other. That's not an environment that would work well in Dungeons and Dragons or improv or, say, continued marriage. The interesting thing about the going online is that it allows us, or it's forced us to sort of strip down what we were doing on stage, figure out what the core elements were, and make sure that we're actually still illuminating those core elements. And some of the side stuff, a lot of the obviously all of the audience interplay, at least with the players themselves, has dropped away. However, what we have now instead is an MC who will literally chat with the audience on Twitch and YouTube while the show is going on.
That's the funnest part. I like that part.
No,
yes.
It is not
for
the
me.
funnest part.
For me.
Karen does a lot of live tweeting.
All I'm saying is that's like going to Stage West and saying, oh, the funnest part of the show was the roast beef.
I loved the buffet.
It's usually the Florentines, though. It's the Florentines. But the other thing is actors make excellent D&D players, and that if they're looking for games to join, Kevin and Griffin have a number of them that exist in the world, not just D20 Initiative, but they have loads of games that can be joined. Also, Griffin and I are considering teaching a workshop in how to improvise D&D, how to make a character and improvise your way through a D&D game. And if you think that's a valuable workshop, please email us at thebreakfastdish.com.
Let's talk about the team members. Let's talk about the rest of the D20 Initiative crew.
Okay. Oh, let me back up and say one of the things that we were very focused on this year was on building a properly woke game.
Yeah, and also kind of on that, something that the D20 Initiative done that's really cool is also moved away from the stereotypes of the races in the game. Like for example, like the orcs don't always have to be like angry and want combat, and halflings don't always have to be like sneaky or hungry or like Lord of the Rings, very hobbitish. Like there's some characters that are a halfling race with a different race's ancestry. Like my character in the D20 Initiative is a halfling, but he was raised by a halfling and a dragonborn parent. So it's one that Jen introduced us. It's called Ancestry and Culture. So your ancestry is is your born race, and then culture is the race that you were raised up into. So I am a halfling. I have halfling ancestry with dragonborn culture.
My character is a 1/5 styrofoam with a background in dance and raised by 6 partridges in a forest called Eldwood.
Sorry, can I just back up to where you said your character is 1/5 styrofoam?
Yep.
I think you mean, given some of the things I've seen, I think 1/5 cardboard is what you want to say.
Thank you. Okay, you were talking about the team members.
Yeah.
All right, so this year, when we're focusing sort of on the online for this particular season, Jen and I are DMing. We have a variety of players. We have people involved in the production, behind the scenes. There's Kurt McKinstry, Emma Brager, Justin Bourne, Sarah Bannister, Calvin De Silva, Jason Memel. We have Alan Edward Johnson, one of our players, Finn Lucullen. They are not playing this year. But they are still involved with regards to the graphics. They are doing the character portrait and some of the NPCs.
Non-player characters, NPCs.
Yeah, we should say that there's also one-shots coming up that have possibly entirely new castmates.
Right. The one-shots are going to be DM'd this year by Jason, and they are going to be additional stories that aren't necessarily part of the main arc, but they are additive to add depth and interest to some of the individual characters and allow the characters to do sort of explorations that aren't going to necessarily, they may or they may not affect the overall story arc.
Talk about NPCs again.
Yeah, so one of the key elements of the D&D world is that the DM's responsibility is to populate the world with characters for the players to interact with. So they aren't playing necessarily an individual character, they're playing the 99,000 other people that will make up a fantasy world.
I wanted to ask you, Dad, what is the earliest D&D character you remember playing? Not an NPC, a PC.
Vinnick.
Finnick.
Venik.
What was Vinnick?
He was a half-elf magic user with a pseudo-dragon familiar named Tang.
Wow, that's really specific. That's way more specific than I thought you were going to get.
Oh, no, it was... I used Tang because it was a pseudo-dragon. It was a false dragon.
Wait, because Tang is a pseudo juice?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Oh, also, he was orange.
So there you go.
This is the kind of dungeon mastering you can expect from Kevin Cork. That's the way his brain works right there.
Kevin, where do we find D20 Initiative on socials?
I don't know.
Okay, 1 second. Good God. Yeah, both Twitter and Instagram are at D20 Initiative.
So both Twitter and Instagram are at D20 Initiative. And we also have a Facebook page and a YouTube channel where you can see archives of the existing episodes as we move forward. And we'll be opening up a D20 website in the next few weeks.
What about the Twitch?
And on Twitch, we're D20 Initiative YYC.
Baller.
And also, I just want to remind listeners that this evening's episode of D20 Initiative, Pages and Mages, will feature Griffin Cork. I'll be in the chat room interpreting for any new D&D players exactly what's going on.
Yes, the games are performed every 2 weeks. The next show is tonight. It's episode 3. It's actually the launch of the season's arc. So it would be a very interesting one for everyone to get involved in and to get a good establishment of what they can expect in terms of the storyline going forward.
And Kevin, do you have any social medias you want to plug here, like personal ones?
I can be found on all the social media.
God. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us. Dad, father, pop.
You never call me mom or mummy. You always call me Karen. How come he gets dad, father, pop?
I definitely call you mum sometimes, and it's because you called him daddy a few episodes ago,
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's
sorry.
your punishment,
You're
I
right.
guess.
Sorry.
I'll see you soon for D&D, but before you go, Karen likes to introduce, or rather ask our guests a question, because she's a professional advisor. Here we go, 3, 2, 1.
It's going to be a 3-parter. When you go into the forest of blank, what's the blank? Make it up.
Sorry, you're doing like a Mad Libs thing?
Yes, I want you to make up the name of a forest right now, one that doesn't exist in any of your worlds.
Edenwood.
Edenwood, great. And there's what kind of character standing there? He's a half what?
He is a half ogre.
What's his name?
His name's Wilhelmina Thighbuster.
And Wilhelmina Thighbuster had what for breakfast?
Quail and redwood bark.
You see, people, what I mean? There's nothing that throws Kevin Cork.
That was a 4-parter question. All right. Well, thank you very much to our funders, the Calgary Arts Development, the Calgary Foundation, and the Rozsa Foundation. The intro music you just heard and the outro music you're about to hear is by Alexander Kalman. All of the breakfast dishes graphic design has been done by Morgan Ermter. You can find me on social medias at Griffin Cork. Karen, where are your socials?
Mrs. N. Diamond or Karen Johnson Diamond. Search me up. There's not very many of me.
Karen, what else is going on this week? Besides the third episode of Pages and Mages, which is streams tonight at 7 p.m.
Well, Griffin, this week I am thinking about families and kids. So, first up, Fire Exit Theatre is going to host their launch of their 19th season this Friday, September 25th at 6 p.m. It's very different, but it's either online or in person. So, Fire Exit Theatre has some host homes that are opening up their backyards or their decks to a maximum of 15 people, and you can enjoy some delicious barbecue from, seriously, Baba O's Bar Barbecue. Tickets are only $50. 25% of that is your tax receipt. If you have questions, you can contact Val at fireexit.ca, and you can reserve your tickets through email, tickets@fireexit.ca. Fire Exit Theatre is also live streaming that launch starting at 7 p.m. Next up, Quest Theatre, my favorite and yours, next Monday, September 28th and Tuesday, September 29th from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. are offering a free class online magical movement stories with Kunji. There is only 15 spots left. So go to Quest Theatre Calgary on Instagram to find out more about magical movements with Kunji. And finally, everybody has to do this. You have to go to the Green Fools Theatre YouTube page and learn how to juggle with Gustavo. Do all of these things. Watch the live stream of Fire Exit Theatre, then go move with Kunji while learning to juggle with Gustavo. And before it was called Dickens, the bar was called Buckingham's. You're welcome. Everyone thought I forgot that.
Kevin, why don't you say thank you for listening to The Breakfast Dish in a fun character voice? Maybe your Sphinx voice.
Or your Venick voice.
Oh, the Sphinx voice has to be the Venick voice.
Yeah, dance, monkey.
I want to thank everyone that come to listen to The Breakfast Dish. And I hope everyone has a smashing day.
I love you.
There's nothing better than that. I'm going to use that outro for every episode. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bop, 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 bop. This has been The Breakfast Dish.